Welcome to this CAPTIVATE session presented by the Contemporary Archive Project supported by the National Arts Council. I'm Paulo Menezes, CAP co-founder and this session's host, in conversation with photographer Andre Swart on his documentation of Durban. I wanted to just precursor this talk with kind of touching on where it started, which is with our exhibition that we currently have on at the Chairman Gallery, where Andre is exhibiting, and we started conversations a couple years back when we wanted to engage Andre's archive, and we've since got a digital version of a portion of his archive, and with the current show, we've been lucky enough to print quite a bit of his work, put it up on the walls. And he's Andre, you've been a huge part of the show, and it's been a privilege to work with you. In that sense, you surprised us by coming to the opening from Cape Town. So that's kind of sort of the where we've led up to this point. So at the point of kind of producing these talks, I immediately put my hand up to host Andre. I resonate a lot with his work. I think the two of us sort of mother tongue is black and white photography. I don't think I've ever seen a color photograph of yours, Andre.
There might be three in here this evening. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay, so in that sense, we speak the same language, and we're both Fuji photographers, so that's another thing that we have in common. I can't wait to see more images, and there's already been a few on the screen that I haven't seen before, so it'll be nice to get into that. And I think at this point, Andre, I could hand over to you to get us started.
Cool. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor and such a privilege. And also thank you for agreeing to have a conversation and not let me waddle on with the presentation, because we would have had to extend this until 2027. So Paula, I think let's kick off with something a little bit more lighthearted, like some skateboarding stuff from Durban. That has always been, it's a culture, it's a scene, it's a community, it's camaraderie, it's friendship, it's meditation, it's catharsis. So it just made logical sense for me having a camera and a light to photograph friends when they are attempting these like super crazy maneuvers. So I've got a couple lined up, not too many. I think the crux of the chat will be around the lockdown stuff kind of happening in 2021. So the skateboarding stuff all happened. I'm terrible with dating things, so it would have been anywhere between 2020 and 2022, like a 2-year gap is kind of where I really wanted to photograph my mate skateboarding. So we'll just go through them, and then if at any time if anybody wants to chat about something, just obviously put up a hand and we'll do that. So this guy is probably the most photogenic skateboarder and friend that I have. His name is Mike, nickname is Sparrow. And he is doing, I believe, a tuckney grab at the Durban Park on the Promenade on the beachfront. That place is crusty, but it's an institute. A lot of people have cut their teeth there, and it's just vitally important to that particular culture of skateboarding in Durban. And then this is, I don't know this kid's name, but he was probably about 11 years old there doing that crooked grind, which is pretty impressive for such a little kiddo. Just goes to show that this park has quite a knack. It's a training ground, essentially. Kids really go there to hone their skills and just really put in the effort to get good at this sport that they've chosen, this activity. There we've got, I like this photograph compositionally, it's quite interesting, but we've also got what happens when someone is trying something. So you've got on the right-hand side of the frame, crouched down, you've got Sparrow, who's filming the skateboarder, Calvin, nicknamed Tink, doing a frontside ollie. And then you've got the folks kind of cheering on and waiting for him to land this thing. These tricks don't happen first go. It generally takes a couple of attempts. So this kind of paints the picture of what generally happens on these days out in the sun. This is Seth Bredenkamp doing a nose slide at a very interesting structure in front of the ICC, the convention center in town. We've
Andre, I just
got
wanted to ask, are you a skateboarder yourself?
yeah.
Okay,
I'm terrible though, so it's much nicer being this side of the lens than that side of the lens. But it's
okay,
part of the it's been the majority of my life, eh? There was a big hiatus when I lived in Johannesburg for a while, but I would say 70% of my life I've been a skateboarder. Yeah.
wow. Because that
Yeah, and
obviously impacts the way that you're photographing and
definitely, yeah.
interacting with it.
100%. I definitely don't consider myself a skateboarding photographer because that is a form of photography. It kind of falls underneath that extreme sports element, if you will,
Mm,
alternative sports. I just really document mates doing stuff. There's a lot
mm,
of skateboarding photographers that actually do this really well and they get published and they're just incredible. Um, yeah, definitely there's a key to timing, which is very important because the trick happens so very quickly. You need to know when to actually frame it so that you can see what the person is doing and it looks well. Style is a big thing, and then obviously the environment for me. The majority of stuff is either shot 35 mil or 21
mm,
mil. So composition is key and then timing is key. In this particular photograph, my timing is actually slightly off because he's doing a wall ride. So he's riding up a wall basically with a very steep transition. But I shot this as soon as I saw the arms crossing. Compositionally, it just looked better. Technically speaking, the board should have been a little bit more horizontal. That would have essentially made for a better skateboarding photograph. But I think as a documentary photograph of a friend doing something,
yeah.
this you kind of bend the rules a little bit with timing
Mm.
if you need to.
Yeah, you
Um,
actually took the words out of my mouth in terms of you're not calling yourself a skateboarding photographer. It's more of a documentary photographer photographing skateboarding because
yeah,
you're not using the 4 millimeter wide, fisheye lens and
yeah,
which is quite
yeah, yeah, yeah,
popular.
yeah.
So yeah, this is great.
Yeah, the guys do generally tend to shoot either super long or super wide,
Mm,
close, and they will generally have a lot more light setup than I do.
mm,
If I need a light, I'll put one up for this kind of
yeah.
stuff. Generally the sun is what I use, but if I have to put a light up, it'll be one for this kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, this is Peter Aitken. Unfortunately passed away quite recently. He had some mental health things that he was battling with. So he passed on quite recently. So the reason I chose this photograph as well is just to explain the timing. And I'm glad you brought that up. Is also just that, he passed on. So it's nice that his body does a little cross there. It's quite a nice, interesting little homage, I would say. Move on to the next one. Oh, that's also Peter. He's ollieing down a set of stairs into a very rough road in Durban CBD, close to the Durban Club. And on the bottom left of the frame is Rowan filming him from one angle, and then Carmen at the right of the frame filming him from another angle. So it's quite, again, it just boils down to that camaraderie. This guy's doing this thing, and he's got three people documenting him doing this one thing. It's just it's filming, documenting skateboarding has always been a very important thing, whether it's done professionally or literally just between friends. It's just really important and part of the whole kind of process, if you will.
Mm.
Sorry, this is taking a little bit slow because I think it's just a very old Mac. Let's go to this. Yeah, that's them. Those are them. So very small selection of skateboarding photographs. There's a whole bunch more, but I didn't want to do too many. We can move on to another folder. Paula, I've got some music stuff here. I've got a handful of protests. And then I've got some interesting stuff during the unrest in Durban. I think it was July 2021. So, yeah, what do you want to
Um,
explore, man? What do you want to look
well,
at?
some of our early conversations while you were in Durban was around your music archive because we wanted to kind of tap into that. Your
Yes,
music
yeah.
stuff was so kind of wide reaching in terms of how long you've been doing it. So maybe let's dive
Yeah,
into that
yeah.
briefly.
It is a relatively small selection as well, but we'll Uh, we'll have a look. There's always, I'm so terrible with editing my work down, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's thousands upon thousands of photographs, and when someone asks you, oh, can you send me 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40, like, I have no idea where to even start. With the exhibition, when you asked me, hey, can you send us some stuff? I mentioned to you, shit, Paulo, I don't think I have the mental capacity for that. Can I just send
Yeah.
you like hundreds and then you can go through it? So
Welcome to our world.
thank you for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
if there's any freelance editors out there, reach out to me. I clearly need you guys. Okay, let's just quickly crop this guy in again. Okay, this is a very cool show. This is an American musician. This was shot on a Nikon F2 with a 35mm lens using, I'm pretty sure it was Kodak Tri-X400. So in the center frame there, that's Willie Mason. He is an American musician, phenomenal Americana, folky style stuff. Just an absolute, just a really beast of a musician. On the right of the frame, you've got Aiden Hines. On the left of the frame, you've got Ren Hines, the Hines brothers, phenomenal musicians in their own right. Ren actually lives this side. Aiden is in the Eastern Cape, floating about somewhere like a sage wizard. And then right at the bottom, at the back of the frame, you've got Richard Haslop. He is actually Durban's finest musicologist. He literally knows more about the music industry, the South African music industry than anybody else in the country, and he happens to live in Durban. He's also a multi-instrumentalist. I believe he's playing the dobro over there. And then there's another shot of Willie Mason. Oh, sorry, this was in a house concert. This was, I've gone blank whose house it was, but it was a beautiful space in Mbilo, and the concert happened there. Aiden and Ren were playing a festival in Gauteng somewhere. I can't recall. I think it was in Opikopi. And Willie Mason was on the bill as well, and they communicated, and Willie opened up a couple of days and he came to Durban, and they set up this house concert, and then they also set up a concert at Live, the venue, which was one of South Africa's best music venues, technically hands down, and also Durban's best music venue without the shadow of a doubt. It was owned by Brett Kingsland and his son and his wife. It was a family-run business, and Brett actually owned a audio-visual company. So they set up the sound and staging lighting for massive events and that kind of a thing. And he actually invested and purchased the space, put a lot of his equipment in there. It was just absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, it didn't last long because there is something weird about Durban's apathy towards live music. It either gets supported or it doesn't. There's no real formula to know whether you can actually get a venue going and sustained. This is Ben Harper. This was at Zakifo at the Botanic Gardens. The Zakifo festivals were amazing. It was a sister festival to a festival called Sakifo with an S. And I believe that was run from the Reunion Islands. And they brought their sister festival to us in Durban, which is amazing. I think it had about a 4 or 5 year run. And I was lucky enough to work one of them as an audio engineer and photograph 2 of them. So yeah, that's Mr. Ben Harper. So this is interesting because I am a sound engineer by trade in a previous life. I used to work a lot with live musicians and live venues, and I generally, because of the industry, had access to get into live shows when they were happening. So this one, I wasn't actually working. I was photographing it. I can't remember who I submitted the photographs to. I think it was a publication called Aware Online, run by Matt Beard. Matt Beard. He's a musician from Durban, currently living in Thailand, I believe. I think I shot this for them. Anyway, so this was backstage with kind of like all access pass, the little band on the arm, and you can kind of go anywhere. And the cool thing about this is because I'm an audio engineer, I kind of know where to go, where not to go, angles, what to look out for, what areas are safe and unsafe. It's a little war zone back there generally. There's a lot of stuff happening that the audience don't see. And then same musician, same concert, but just kind of whoop from the audience. So just to give you a difference in perspective of like when you shoot something, where your location is in comparison to the subject, like how completely different that photograph could end up. Then we've got same concert, same stage, just a little homage to the technical crew that make these things happen, man. These guys put in so much hard work, and yeah, I just thought it'd be a good like shout out to all the technical people out there in the world. I cannot recall this drummer's name, but it was just such a beautiful image with the light and the smoke. And she had two drumsticks that tied her hair up in a pony at the back, and I just find that so visually pleasing. Um, I do recall this was a very good band. I just cannot remember what their name is, unfortunately. This is a Swiss band called Putzmarie, and this was at Sakifo the year before the Botanic Gardens Sakifo, and that was at the Winston, which was Durban's finest little pub. It was just a rock and roll pub. It was scummy and dirty and beautiful, and unfortunately, COVID kind of did its thing there. This was in their parking lot. This is one of the people from that band who is passing on a tiny little marijuana cigarette to a friend of his. And I thought that was quite an interesting thing. It's off stage, relaxing with your mates and just unwinding the other side of the event, the musical concert. This is a German. These guys are cool. They are, I'm going to mispronounce this. It's either Moet or Meut. German. I think it's Muete. They are a brass band with percussion, and they do this incredible house music, just completely acoustically with no electronics, just basically a marching band. And they are such a joy. If anybody ever gets the opportunity to see them live, I would highly recommend it. It's an amazing bunch of guys. And I love his cap there. It just says "Gays okay." Just a beautiful bunch of human beings. And they actually smiled at me as I took this photograph. I had hundreds of photographs of them during the night, but just that smile, the two of them, okay, there we go. This is the one. You don't need to capture the essence of them performing, just them smiling at me. That just gives you an indication of what nice people they were. Same band, same hat. I really love that hat. This is Dubai Nahore. This was also at Sakifo at the Winston. And this person was just incredible. Absolutely mind-blowing stage performance, just so much raw power. It was such a privilege to be in her presence during this performance. It was gut-wrenchingly beautiful. Another one of her, man, she just destroyed that floor tom on the stage there, barely made it out alive. This is Mr. Johnny Clegg. I was doing monitors, which is kind of doing sound for the musicians on stage, what they hear. It was at a jazz festival in the Ugu district, so that would have been just out of Port Shepstone. And Mr. Johnny Clegg was there. And I just love this photograph, the smoke kind of rolling off his head, composed with the two lights in the middle. And he was just such a stalwart. I think he's one of South Africa's best musical exports, my personal opinion, amongst many, but definitely in the upper echelons. This is Brayu Masakela. I was the monitor engineer during this gig, and I had my camera with me. I think it was a 105 millimeter Nikkor lens. It would have been the FM2. No, I'm lying. The F2. Probably with Tri-X as well. And he actually asked me, but he couldn't see me because I wasn't at my station. I snuck away to photograph him. And as I snuck away, he wanted more of his trumpet in the stage monitor. It wasn't loud enough for him. And he's looking at no one because the person who's supposed to be putting that trumpet up for him is actually photographing him. So I quickly shot the photograph and then did my actual job that I was getting paid for. Those are them. So now we've got the option. We've got the unrest. We've got a handful of protests in Durban. And then we've got a relatively bulky bit of the lockdown stuff. So Paulo, where do you wanna go with this, man?
I haven't seen much of the unrest, so let's dive into that.
Okay, cool. So interesting story with the unrest. The person I was chatting about earlier on the skateboarder doing the wall ride in the cross position, he actually phoned me up on the Monday. I think it was the 12th of July, and he said, it was an interesting phone call. He's like, bro, you see the shit that's going on? And I was like, yeah, it's fucking wild. Sorry for the swear words, guys. Um, and he's like, do you want to go? Do you want to photograph this thing? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And he was a bit of a um, speed. He had fast motorbikes and fast cars like the majority of his life, and he rolled up and he picked me up in this. I think it was a Ford something ST, just this like really souped up sports car. It actually looked like a flying squad vehicle. So he picked me up and we just went into town and I photographed this. And as we were driving around, I phoned someone from the Independent, Shelley Kjonstad. I phoned her and I was like, look, I'm out. I'm shooting this stuff. I'm not a photojournalist, but I'm doing this thing. Where can I send this stuff to? And she gave me Dennis Farrell's number, who is the photo editor for the Associated Press. And I managed to sell quite a lot of these photographs to the AP, which was amazing. Dennis Farrell, just for those that don't know, is also, he was the photo editor during the kind of 94 and before that, the Bang Bang Club. He basically looked after a lot of those guys when they were like photojournalists back documenting that insane transition period. Um, Very cool, buddy. I'd love to have a cup of tea with him one day.
If anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat,
Oh, yeah.
and then we can get to them in a little while. We're covering a lot of topics, so should speak to some people.
Yeah, if anybody wants to chat or bat in or have a question.
Also that, please contribute. Thanks, Andre.
Okay, can you see that, Paulo?
Yes.
This was Marion Hill, the back. I can't recall what road it was, but it was kind of on the way upper and below towards, I think it was Marion Hill side. Was it Marion Hill? Geez, I'm geographically challenged. I've also not been in Durban for so long, I've forgotten where everything is. But I love this photograph because it just shows this intense insanity in the background. I mean, people were just really upset and they were burning things. And, this woman was just not having any of it. It seemed like she just wanted to carry on with the day. And, it was during COVID and she had a mask on. And she's just, she clocked me and I photographed her and she just kind of shook her head like, what the hell is going on here, man? This is so hectic. And then she just carried on with the day. This is one of the Metro police vehicles kind of trying to disperse the crowd. There was a massive amount of people. There's an informal settlement kind of between Pavilion and the University of Durban. And there was just a lot of people kind of streaming in and out to kind of go into town and back, and the Metro cops were keeping them at bay. It was interesting during that it was about a week, 3 or 4 days of like severe unrest. I only ever saw Metro, Durban Metro. I saw maybe 2 or 3 South African police services vehicles and absolutely no South African National Defence Force at all. It was very interesting. Only kind of the Metro guys and the private security really kept everything together because it was a very scary battleground out there during that phase. There was quite a lot of adrenaline. This is interesting. A police officer just out of frame. There's a police vehicle, and these gents were actually assisting. This bottle store had been looted early in the morning, and they were actually kind of helping just get stuff back in the store. I don't know if they were employees of the store or just good Samaritans, but they were actually putting stuff back in the bottle store, old court cases and things. This was in town. I think it was West Street. You can actually see in the background the tower at the university. I mean, that's a guiding point for anybody lost in Durban. Is if you don't know where East is, you just look for the tower at the university and you kind of know where you are. There was a building that was set alight. The first 2 stories as shop fronts and business, and then the rest of it, I think another 8 or 9 stories is residential. And the the bottom two floors were set light, so all the residents at the top were kind of hustling to get down. It was a very interesting mix of human beings. You had essentially Zulu folks that lived in the building, and you had Nigerian folks that kind of assisted alongside Indian folks and English and Afrikaans white folks. It was just beautiful to see this whole beautiful melting pot just kind of like amalgamating and all working together to get these people safely out of the burning building. Um, this is one of the people sliding down. I shouldn't chuckle, but I do find this photograph quite funny because this guy's actually got quite a fat smile on his face. I don't know if he's ever been down such a slide, such an intense slide. And then underneath the Truworth sign, there's a little smiley face that's spray painted on the guard door, whatever you want to call it. This was beautiful, man. This is a firefighter just handing a little kiddo back to the mom. It was just beautiful to witness this. It's a movie scene, you know. It's like, whoa, this guy literally just saved this baby and is giving this little kiddo back to the mom. It's fantastic. This is in Durban North. It was kind of, yeah, just to show how hectic it was. Like, you know, the food, there was no food coming into the city. People were limited to, I think it was 10 items. You know, it was just that stress of like, oh, great, here we go again. There's no toilet paper, there's no food. We don't have dry goods, you know, for these events because people don't expect this stuff to happen. So this is just a little photograph to show, you know, people lining up and stressed and worried and trying to get a little bit of groceries and some canned lentils and beans just in case, because you don't know what happens in these situations, how long they're going to drag out for. This is just a scene of the EMS guys assisting some of the those residents in that same building in town, just giving them a little bit of a hand. It's these people are so grateful for the assistance. I mean, it's the paramedics' job to assist, but when you are at the other end receiving that assistance, the gratitude is immense. I love this photograph. This is a police officer en route with a shotgun, presumably loaded with rubber bullets, and that is Peter Aitken driving me around. Yeah, I love this portrait. It's just kind of, if you ever knew Pete, like this is him, always in trouble, you know, sneaky little smirk in his face, and you know, just on his way to the next adrenaline rush. This is Davenport Square in Glenwood. The color version of this was actually bought by the AP, by the Associated Press. It's just showing the folks kind of like queuing to get into the center and then making their way out with all bits and bobs, you know. There's a lot of families also. It was very interesting to see a lot of like younger folks would go and just kind of loot a bunch of booze for a shindig. And then there was also just an immensely large amount of families that would just like go down from the informal settlement and walk back uphill with trolleys of rice and oil and bread, etc., etc. So yeah, it was a very wild time. Guys kind of in the process of getting into the game stores. And this is in the CBD. This was interesting to see in Springfield on what's that road? I can't recall that big road coming from Westville into Springfield. I can't recall the road's name, but you know, these are leather couches, and you don't see it like a 35,000 rand leather couch just sitting on the side of the road. I just find it such a like a funny, interesting, and scary image, and I had to photograph it. Yeah, those are them.
Cool. Andre, we've got some questions if we want to tackle them at this point, and then whatever comes afterwards we can do at the end. Wandile, hi Wandile, thanks for joining us. Andre, can you see the chat?
I cannot because
You can't. You've got lots of compliments. Wandile says you've got an amazing eye, and where do you get your inspiration from?
Geez. Thank you for
Hard
the compliment.
question.
I appreciate that. The inspiration, man. I think it's just looking, it's just looking. It's just constantly being aware of, you don't always have a camera with you. Like you try to, but it's not always possible. But you're always seeing, you're always looking, you're always composing in your mind, like, oh, if I had a camera with me, that's how I would frame this. Oh, that's interesting. Look at that dog running across the road. It doesn't end up becoming a photograph, but you still train your eye and your mind from that. And then obviously photo books, man. I've got a collection of photo books. I don't buy them for the photographer. I kind of peruse through them, and if they're nice, and it's an affordable book, then I will purchase it. And every every couple of days or every couple of weeks, I'll take the time and literally just go through and just soak in the inspiration. Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. And then Simanga is asking if you plan what you photograph beforehand.
Yes and no. When I go out just to the shops or for a walk, then I'm a street photographer and I don't plan anything. Might not come back with one photograph, I might come back with a bunch. If something is happening and I feel the need to go and document it, then I don't plan out a shot because you've got to be very fluid. So, and then there's the occasional artistic portrait session, which you obviously map out in your mind. You kind of plan where you want to do the lights, and you've got your composition in your head already, and you can plan for that. But the stuff when you're on the fly, when you're on your feet, no, the only planning is really where am I going to go, when am I going to go there, and then everything is up to chance, the
Great.
eye, I guess.
One more before we move on, Andre. I'm just curious, you mentioned AP, and I'd love to know where the images went
Sure.
from like what was their journey?
So the Associated Press, what they do with a lot of these agencies is they will essentially compile a article that they know will sell. The Washington Post would want to put something together that explains the unrest in Durban during July of 2021, but they don't have a correspondent here. So the news agency would then essentially buy the story from the Associated Press. So it was sold to the AP, and then from there, I think it went to 40 or 50 publications internationally, from like the Ireland Independent to, if you actually Google Associated Press, Durban Unrest, Andre Swart, then there's like a whole list of newspapers. So I'm not 100% sure exactly where it went to, but it went to about 40 or 50 publications internationally, print and online.
Thanks, Andre.
Cool.
Should we go to the protests, with it being a similar theme, and then we can finish off with some of your lockdown work?
Yeah, cool. Cool. So let's do the color ones quickly, guys. I want to see some color photos.
Some rare color.
Yeah. So the reason this is color is during the initial lockdown, the industry that I was a part of, which is essentially the great entertainment industry, that was the first one to close and the very last one to open up. So a lot of people within that industry struggled intensely. There was no real support from anybody, and even though at some stage it was advised that outside gatherings is fine, the entertainment industry still really took a massive knock. So someone, and I can't recall who it was, came up with the initiative of Lighted Red, where they would light up specific buildings in areas red as a form of protest. And I don't have a lot of this because I'm not a color photographer, so they all actually came out really bad. So I've got like 3. Okay, let's see the crop again. Sorry about this constant crop. Okay.
It looks like your hand was forced here with color, Andre,
Yeah, it really
with the whole
was.
red
But
topic.
I felt it needed to be in color just because of
Yes,
the whole message. Yeah. So this is a water
absolutely.
tower in Overport, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
And then this is the crew that lit that up. All industry colleagues of mine. And then this is the lighthouse on the promenade. I actually kind of like this one because the green hue and the red kind of, it looks nice. Green and red's a good combo. Maybe I should buy some colorful. Yeah, those are them, Paulo. Just the three of those. This is let's have a look at this one. This is quite interesting as well. There was a bunch of kids that organized this because Shell wanted to start fracking on the Wild Coast, and basically just kind of like they just Shell and all these oil companies just really want to go around and just gather as much resources for human consumption as possible, fossil fuels and that. And they were planning something on the Wild Coast, and yeah, the folks just weren't having any of it. This was shot with a 21 mil equivalent, 21 mil focal length lens. Yeah. This also happened so long ago. It's interesting to revisit these photographs because a lot of the details kind of like waft away, but the feeling that you felt when you were there comes back immediately. It's yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's obviously linked to the senses. You know, you smell your mom's cooking, you remember being a kid, kind of thing. Yeah, people are upset. It was quite the Metro cops were very diplomatic and respectful of the protesters as well. But everybody was pretty mellow. I don't recall there being any nonsense. Was,
I've just observed, Andre, going through your quite extensive archive over the years. The sense of community in your work is inspiring. You've got photographs of skateboarders in front of the lens, and then sitting next to you in the car, on a completely different subject, different body of work. And I'm seeing it again here with this work. It's really great.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, community is super important. You know, we're a herd animal as human beings. You know, we need community. That's why things like churches and clubs and sporting events and all of this stuff exists, because we need to be around like-minded folks. We need to, photo walks, going for dancing lessons, all of this stuff, going to church on a Sunday or to mosque or a synagogue or whatever the case is. We love community. We are herd creatures. So yeah, I think that's definitely why skateboarding is such an important part of my life, is because you form lifelong friends doing this silly little activity that children are supposed to do, but adults also still do. So thank you for that. But yeah, I agree. Community is vitally important for most human beings. We not solitary creatures at all. And then yeah, I just want to go through the Free Palestine thing. I believe there's not a lot of photos here. Just it's quite relevant now, obviously. So just a couple of these guys. Durban's got a beautiful, quite a large Muslim community. So the folks really banded together. I love this photograph. It's just so stereotypically Durban. You've got those three hotels run by the Southern Sun. I think it's the Elangeni. What are the other two? The Elangeni, and then the other two. I can't remember the name.
Maharani's one.
Maharani, yes. And then
I don't know what the middle one's called.
Yeah, and yeah, I just love this photo. You've got the Palestinian flag. You've got the stereotypical kind of like Durban hotel group in the background, and then you've also got this bird of freedom that just symbolizes, like, something's afoot. There's positive change hopefully happening in the not too distant future. Also very respectful during the, a lot of the stuff, I think all of it kind of happened in and around that COVID period. So, super respectful folks, out angry, protesting, but still there was a social distancing element within reason, obviously. And then everybody just wore their masks. It was so good to see that people are angry, but still respectful. So it did make me chuckle because I'm a massive Star Wars fan. And I think even Darth Vader is like done with his nonsense. Yeah, remember them. And then, yeah. Okay. So this is, I really started exploring the promenade of Durban. There was during the COVID thing, there was this time frame where we weren't allowed to really go out and see people. And then we could go out for limited, I think there was like 2 hours in the morning for exercise or whatever the case is. And then at some stage it was like, okay, cool, you guys can go out. You're not allowed to swim, but you can go out and walk, just keep your mask on. And obviously with the insane cabin fever and the fact that, you know, as a community creature, I wasn't around any community. It was my landlord and I, and yeah, that was pretty much it, you know, and the dog. Uh, and I really just needed to get out and just photograph, just like do something. And I ended up with a very extensive collection of photographs, quite a big body of work, just kind of documenting the promenade because I had to, you know, I was stuck indoors making horrible banana breads. Now all of a sudden I had freedom. Okay, cool. Let's document, let's photograph these people. What are these people doing? It was a bit like, I was a bit of a rabid dog during this phase, but I'm glad I did get the photographic rabies because after I broke, if you recall, when you asked me for some of these photographs, I said to you, oh, shit, man, I really am having a difficult time going through this stuff. It's just really boiling up. I've actually, having gone through this recently again, processed a lot of that stuff. So it's actually nice looking back at the stuff again. And yeah, I don't know if my photographic work in Durban is done yet. I think there's one or two more photographs that need to be made that side. So yeah, let's go through this. This is one of the photographs you printed for the exhibition. Am I right?
You're right. Yep. Just to give the folks some context, this is the work that they drew from um, in the current show field notes. So this was the body of work that Andre shared with us when we approached him, and yeah, we sifted through it and selected quite a few for the walls. Interestingly, Andre's work paired really well with a lot of the other photographers on the show. So his work features on, you know, different collections of prints and different themes, and with other photographers' works photographing in a similar style. So
Yeah. On that note, hats off to you guys again. The curation and the flow was impeccable. It was just so beautiful. Everything just worked well together. The way you guys curated different bodies, people's work together was just really astounding. Yeah.
thanks, Andre.
Cool. Cool. Um, Man, Durban late afternoon light is something special. Eh? There's a bunch of guys playing soccer in a field behind, I think it's South Beach. Um, I love this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but in between the two big buildings right at the back, there's that really weird Telkom building, or the ABSA building. It almost looks like a spacecraft in Durban CBD. And then you could also see the cricket stadium. So if you are from Durban and you've actually spent time in this neck of the woods, kind of the apartment buildings behind the promenade, like it's just, you immediately know exactly where you are geographically. Um, I've always had a thing for street vendors, kind of cash in hand transactions and that kind of a thing. Um, if I recall correctly, this was ages ago, but I think Neve had a publication. Shit, man, I need to chat to her about that. I think I did some cash in hand stuff with her ages ago, if I recall. Anyway, so I found this interesting. This was the local hangout, the skate park, and there's these two dudes perfectly contrasted with their jackets and the tree and the sky, and then you've got the little bottles of water and sand and plant life that they go and sell to tourists. It's such a beautiful urban thing to see. Um, this, just overnight, there was a conspiratorial theorist that rocked up and just spray painted all these conspiracy theories all over. NASA faked the space landing, etc., etc. But I do love the Durban architecture on the promenade, especially the little lifeguard huts. If anybody in Durban is architecturally inclined, if you want to do a photographic series of all of these little lifeguard huts across the promenade, I think that would win a Pulitzer. So just putting it out there for anybody. Yeah, this was actually the very first photograph I took the day before the lockdown. Like we knew something was up, something weird was going to happen, and I believe I took this photograph the day before the actual lockdown, which kind of, the, the bird has no wings left. We're trapped now, stuck indoors. There's also a beautiful ritualistic melting pot in Durban. I mean, it's just got so many amazing cultures. And one thing about the promenade is it's probably the single most inclusive space in, I would say, easily in South Africa. It's just basically a flat slab of concrete and brick, and that allows everybody to get together and just be themselves. Um, you've got joggers early in the morning. You've got the kids practicing karate, guys playing touch rugby or soccer. Then this is a ritual. I'm not sure. I forgive my ignorance. But something spiritual is going to happen there after this little scene. But the lady's on the telephone. It's modern day South Africa. It's just, yeah, it really is a melting pot. This was so eerie for me. It was quite a windy day, but even with, you can see the ocean's choppy, there's a bit of wind happening there. But, at the end of the day, there would have still been people on the beach because it was a hot day and it's tropical. And it was just so wild. Like, you've got this little family having a chat, but no one's on the beach. No one's allowed on the beach. It was just so eerie and so strange. I honestly, to this day, can't comprehend why we couldn't go swimming, man. It's so strange. This composition, yeah, I enjoyed this as well. It's part of the yeah, there's just so many little interesting bits and bobs happening. It's not always about the people, but the little spaces around that promenade section. I mean, it's like 6.2 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just 6.2 kilometers of the most interesting stuff. And the only thing that holds it together is a slab of concrete and brick. There is a little bit of stuff away from the promenade as well. This is Musgrave. Enjoy this. The gentleman's got his little umbrella because it's a hot day. He's carrying his broom and he's got his mask on his face. I should have taken this out. I had a dark room around the corner from where the exhibition was hosted at the Chairman, and I stumbled across this photograph, and I actually wanted to just print this out and have it as a keepsake. And actually, I forgot that I had it in there. I love this photograph. They are just so zen on the beach. It's a windy day, but they had to be there. That's it. There's no one on the actual beach. A couple of people on the promenade. One of Durban's finest pigeons in the corner there waiting for a little breadcrumb. And the lifeguard, the little towers all clumped together because the lifeguards are off duty because no one's allowed to swim. So why have lifeguards? This was such a stereotypical restaurant scene as well, hotel wait, restaurant wait staff or manager with a little muscat key. You've got your sign-in thing. Are you feeling okay? What's your temperature? You've got your hand sanitizing thing there. And then the please wait to be seated sign. It's also those sections. It's on the South Beach side. It's retail space. People sell goods and wares and curios and that. Then it's just so strange that they were all empty except for like little pockets of them. And this lady and the daughter had packed up for the day. No one was buying anything. I just find it such a striking image. Normally that would be kitted out with all sorts of interesting stuff, from slops to masks to t-shirts with Mandela's face on it. And there's just, they worked a couple of hours, didn't sell anything, packed up and heading home. The kiddo changing a bicycle tire. It's nice to go through these photographs again, Paulo. And that is also just insanely Durban, the lost ice cream. I think we've all been there. A lot of people started flying kites during that time as well. I think it was generally quite a windy season, but I saw so many kites. Just an interesting outdoor hobby. You can run around, get some fresh air, and fly a kite. A lot of these scenes, people weren't allowed on the beach, but they wanted to hang out, so they just set up chairs, just camp along those the benches essentially between the promenade and the beach. This was a weird glimmer of hope. This is close to the North Beach parking lot by Minitown, and they were installing during COVID. They were installing that yellow frame thing with the. I think it has like built-in Wi-Fi, and you can take a little selfie and tag Durban tourism or whatever the case. They've got them. They've got them here in the Western Cape as well, like all touristy spots. And they were actually installing this during COVID, and it just gave me such a glimmer of hope. Well, okay, that thing is literally designed for tourism, so clearly some positive, something good is, this is going to blow over at some stage. This blows my mind, man. This beach, South Beach side, is always just so packed with kids, because there's a lot of residential blocks just that side of the promenade, the beach road, and there's always kids playing there after school and that. And it was just so weird to see this whole stretch of beach on such a nice day just so empty. And then the trees, the composition of the trees, just really, that was just such a little gift from the universe. And yeah, the guys, the informal traders were there trying to make, ends meet.
Andre, just some timekeeping. We'll close up for questions in a couple minutes.
No problem. No,
just so that you can
yeah.
pace yourself.
No, that's fantastic. I think, yeah. So I'll just keep scrolling for the next few minutes. What are we doing now? We're 5-2. Yeah. Cool.
Let me just read some that are coming through. Sorry, yeah.
Just this one, just very quickly. These that interesting, that structure at the little play world in on the promenade there. They kind of look like the stereotypical COVID virus when they had them on TV and that. And I just found it so hilarious that there's these little COVID viruses. In any case, yeah. Carry on. What were you saying? Sorry.
Yeah, just to get into some of these questions in the chat.
Cool.
We just going back to your riots, Andre. Rachel has asked if you're ever concerned around the potential to romanticize or sensationalize violent situations through photography without intending to. And if you ever stop and think whether you should be photographing a scene or not, with those concerns in mind. Are those things that you...
I'm probably going to have to ask you to redo that question, but just the stop and think. There's an automatic filter that happens where you just know what not to photograph. There's certain things that I've hard imprinted in myself that I will just not photograph. So if I come across that, the camera stays in the bag or the shutter just never gets released. If I happen to shoot something that afterwards I think, oh shit, I shouldn't have, that person's in a bit of a questionable space, I don't use the photograph. Many times I will delete it. And then just give me that first portion of the question again. Sorry, that was quite a packed question.
Yeah, it was just if you ever have concerns around the potential to romanticize or sensationalize violent situations through photography.
Yeah, not intentionally. I mean, I don't think that's any photographer's real intention. So no. Could come across as that. I don't know. It's one of those things. It happens. Someone has to document it for whatever reason. And yeah, I don't think violence should ever be sensationalized. So no.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks, Andre. And then Samanga has said, do you pre-visualize in black and white? Is that something? Are you kind of pre-visualizing a photograph or not?
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of black and white TV because a lot of shows were Afrikaans then, and the dubbing stuffed me around. I couldn't, it was an American show, so it had to be English. Why is it Afrikaans? The dubbing weirded me out. So I had a little black and white TV, and I would listen to Radio 2000 and simulcast. So visually, like black and white was always just there. Like my eyes were always just kind of like, oh, yes, this is black and white. And then when I started photographing, I took up black and white photography simply because I could process at home in a bathroom. It was cheap. Back then, it was cheap. And then I realized, okay, cool, cool. This just makes a lot more logical sense. I've done a lot of color work, but I just don't feel comfortable with it. So I do kind of almost pre-visualize when I photograph, like, yeah, the colors just, it becomes light and shadow, which is nice. But that is also assisted with the technology. The technology now, you've got a mirrorless camera, so your viewfinder is actually a tiny little TV screen. So I've already got a black and white filtered over what I'm seeing. So I'm literally seeing the image in black and white. But there's also I have trained myself to kind of see light and shadow instead of colors, shapes, lights and shadows. So it's a pre-visualization up to a point, but the camera also helps because it has the technology to literally for me to see the photograph in black and white.
On that topic, you're photographing with a Fuji film camera, Andre, is that right? And you work for
Yeah.
Fujifilm.
Yes.
Do you want to give
Yeah.
us a minute on your job, on your day job?
Oh yeah. Okay. So first of all, this is the baby. Just thought, we're a bunch of camera nerds here, so we might as well. That's her.
The X100?
The fifth iteration, the V.
Okay.
Yeah. I shot film for ages, Nikon body specifically, Nikon Fs for a while, and then I got my hands on the FM2N, the one with the titanium shutter, and it's just such an amazing camera. But film, the raw materials to produce film and the chemistry has just obviously gone up and up and up. It's logistics, it's just raw materials, it's manufacturing and production. So film stock and chemistry prices just inevitably went up, and it got to a point where I really couldn't afford buying roll after roll after roll and getting them processed and then scanned. I would do the processing myself, but if there was something important on the frame, I would take it to Max at Photo Max. He just knew. So I mean, he's such a stalwart in that industry. So I trusted him completely with processing, but I could still process at home. But that everything just became expensive, and I thought, okay, cool. I'm not going to stop photographing, but I can't afford it anymore. So what am I going to do? Okay, buy a digital camera because it's a once-off investment, and then Bob's your uncle. The process is different, but the outcome is still the same within limits. And coincidentally, I didn't really know about Fujifilm at the time, and I went to Photo Freedom in Durban North, and I chatted to Robert Allen there, and he showed me the XT3, and it was literally the exact same size as my FM2. So it was a no-brainer for me. It wasn't a new camera. Everything was tactile. It was there. Aperture, just like my analog lens, everything was almost identical. Same weight, same size. I could literally pick the one up or the other one, and it would make no difference to me. And I never wanted to be a struggling artist or a struggling photographer, and I'm very kind of steadfast on what I like to photograph. I did quite a lot of freelance work in Durban and shooting all sorts of weird and wonderful things to, just to keep afloat. And I realized that I did not want to shoot golf days and headshots for LinkedIn and that. Nothing wrong with any of that, but it's just not, I no love for it whatsoever on a personal level. So I thought the only way I'm going to carry on photographing what I want to photograph is just to carry on working within the industry, and there was a big transition period from, I was an audio engineer, but COVID stuffed us up. I knew that industry was suffering. Durban as a city was suffering economically. So I knew I needed to move on to a different industry and also move to a different province. And I actually reached out to Fujifilm because I was such a fan of the cameras and the photographic chemistry and the photographic paper. The majority of prints ever had done is on Fuji paper with Fuji chemistry or Fuji ink. Um, and I did research on the company, and I just kind of sent the CV out, cold. And coincidentally, there was a shift within the company. The one person was moving on to a different role within the company, and his previous role opened up, and everything just kind of aligned perfectly, which was such a blessing because this allows me to work within the photographic industry, nerding out about cameras and chatting to the guys with photo labs and that, and still be able to photograph what I want to do, how I want to do it without really having to worry about paying the bills at the end of the day. So it was like basically a combination of being a big fan of the camera after I finally got it in my hands, needing to work because I didn't want to be a starving artist. So yeah, basically I work in technical sales with them. Yeah, just assist the camera stores with cameras and lenses, and then the photographic labs with printers and chemistry and paper and inks and that kind of a thing. And we also do the Instax line, which is great. It's instant photography. You got the camera, you shoot, print out your little photograph there and then. I designed a zine using the Instax form as well, which I haven't printed yet because I just haven't gotten to it. I'll share that with you guys as well. So they've got a very cool stable of products, and it gives me the security to carry on photographing what I need to photograph without having to worry. Yeah, sorry for waffling on there. Does that answer
Awesome.
the question?
It does. Thank you, Andre, and
Cool.
thanks for your time, your generosity with your work and your insights. Um, yeah, if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I think we can wrap up at this point. What a gift, Cindy says. So thank you, Andre. Could I throw to Neve quickly for a
Yeah,
wrap up?
of course.
Thank you, Paulo. Thank you, Andre, so much for taking the time to share and unpack some of the work. I really wanted to just reflect and make a point that especially the lockdown work is so important as a documentation, and that's why we as CAP wanted it part of our archive to engage with and be able to create further dialogue around it. Obviously, street photography has always those blurred lines of ethics that, as an organization we toy with, and it's nice to kind of reflect and keep in contact and try and work through some of these tensions that exist. And always it comes back down to the photography and what is the purpose of it. And I think especially with it's really important we can go back to this and see what we went through. So thank you, Andre.